in your case, did Mueller and his team offer anything of value? Your freedom, for example, I would argue is of great value if you would say certain things they wanted you to say, whether they were true or not.
Well, in the beginning of the case, Sean, I don't think that was their intention. But as they got closer and closer to having to issue the Mueller report, and they realized that they had no Russian collusion, because there was no Russian collusion, it was a hoax. On July 24th, Rhee, who was heading my prosecution within the Mueller team, that's extraordinary in itself, because she previously represented Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation in the illegal email server case and the missing email case. So she had a clear bias. She was a maximum donor to both of Hillary's presidential campaigns. By the way, she has all the charm of a North Korean prison guard. She made it very clear to one of my lawyers, after a hearing she asked to see him privately, that if I would re-remember certain phone conversations I had with candidate Trump, if I would come clean, if I would confess, that they might be willing to, recommend leniency to the judge. Perhaps I wouldn't even serve any jail time. And I didn't have to think about it very long. I said, absolutely not. There was no circumstance under which I would bear false witness against the president. I was just not willing to lie. Now, in the last 2 days, when I said that, people said, you see, Stone had the goods on Trump, and he traded his silence for a commutation. That is patently false. I never said that. I never implied that. What I said has been consistent, that I would not lie against my friend of 40 years so they could use it for impeachment. They wanted me to be the ham in their ham sandwich because they knew the Mueller report, particularly on Russia, was a dud. It was a goose egg. They had nothing, and they were hoping that I would recharacterize my phone calls. I think these phone calls that were plea bargain induced claims by Michael Cohen and Rick Gates, for which they could never find any corroboration, and I simply refused to do it.
Let me go to you, David Schoen, and I'll ask you both the same question simultaneously. Roger, I think I've known you well enough over the years. You're a fighter. Your instincts are going to be, okay, now I'm going to go back, and maybe if you go back and you appeal this and you open up this case again, I would argue right now you're home free. And I think that I saw nothing but corruption in that courtroom by that judge and that jury, and not giving you another trial. David, I would say that if you go forward with that, you are now putting Roger's life back in jeopardy again. And I don't know. I don't have any faith in that system. I don't have any faith in that judge. I don't have any faith with that jury. Nobody on this case, do I believe, is honorable here.
Yeah, I think you're right. You raise a very interesting question and a perplexing one. We have to sit down and make a decision as to whether to go forward with the appeal, knowing that a win in this case, and there should be a win, classic Fifth and Sixth Amendment violations, would go right back to the same judge and a courtroom of injustice. Let me just say this to you. This commutation is a great tribute to President Trump for 3 reasons. He sends the message that the Mueller team was rotten to the core from its inception. When Mr. Mueller picked Andrew Weissman as his
I've been saying that for over 3 years, David. Screaming
well, you're right.
it.
You don't pick an investigation that involves the President of the United States, requires integrity. You don't pick an Andrew Weissman, who's the most ethically bankrupt prosecutor I've ever come across. I represent 2 men right now, Mr. Arena, Mr. Sessa, who were wrongfully convicted with him. You talked about making deals with witnesses. He lied about those deals. He was mentioned specifically by a judge for his misconduct. So that's one thing. The Mueller team was rotten to the core, filled with partisans. Number 2, an unfair trial. The president recognized that. The judge denied the entire defense theory. Mr. Stone wasn't allowed to mention on social media or make a defense theory that in any way challenged the integrity of the Mueller team. Unprecedented. And thirdly, the president saved a life here, because the judge's decision on denying a surrender extension when COVID was in the prison and with these health conditions goes against all authority in the country on this issue, as did the Court of Appeals.